New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady has emphasized how lucky he's been to be on the right team with the right players and coaches. Well, there have been a number of NFL legends who would love to relate to Tommy Terrific. Unfortunately, their talents weren't enough to help their teams. That's because the players around them didn't do much to help. I'm Justin Fraction, and today we present 10 NFL players who had the worst supporting cast. And we do hope you enjoy this video, and if you do, feel free to click subscribe down below for more cool videos every single day. Number 10, Phillip Rivers, 2010 to present. With over 45,000 career passing yards and more than 300 touchdowns, Phillip Rivers is crafting out what should be a Hall of Fame career. But since the turn of the decade, Rivers has had little to no support around him. His offensive line is among the league's worst every year. The Chargers have supplied him with plenty of running backs who never turned out to be much. Hello, Ryan Matthews. Rivers' wide receivers change seemingly every year. That's on management and coaching. Poor Phillip. Among the leading passers every year, but he doesn't sniff the playoffs. That's because the team around him is always terrible. Number 9, Chad Johnson, 2001 to 2008. Johnson was arguably the NFL's most dominant wide receiver in the 2000s. He easily put up over 1,000 yards virtually every season, but the Bengals never took advantage of having his world-class talents. 5 different Bengals quarterbacks were used at some point between 2001 and 8. The best was the ever-inconsistent Carson Palmer, and in his first 8 years with the Bengals, Johnson only saw one playoff game. That's because the rest of the Bengals roster was pretty bad, to say the least. Number 8, Reggie White, 1985 to 1987. Thankfully, Reggie White mainly played on the Philadelphia Eagles teams, but in his first 3 NFL seasons there, poor guy. From 1985 to 87, White had 52 total sacks and 3 forced fumbles. The Eagles won 7, 5, and 7 games over those 3 years. The defense was nothing without White. The offense was quite miserable despite the talents of quarterbacks Ron Jaworski and Randall Cunningham. At least White got to experience plenty of winning after 1987, but those first 3 years were unfair to him. Number 7, Drew Brees, 2012 to present. Despite being third all-time in passing yards and passing touchdowns, Drew Brees hasn't gotten the support he's deserved. His New Orleans Saints have had one of the NFL's bottom 3 defenses just about every year since 2011. Besides Marcus Colston, he has not had a superstar wide receiver for more than 3 years, and though his coaching staff used to be one where guys paid players to intentionally injure stars. Yet Brees single-handedly carried the Saints to Super Bowl 44. He hasn't stopped putting up the impressive stats. It's easy to believe he'd have 3 Super Bowls if he had almost any other defense in the NFL. No joke. Number 6, Larry Fitzgerald, 2004 to 7, 2010 to 2012. Despite ranking in the top 10 for all-time receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, Larry Fitzgerald has spent most of his career with virtually no support. So he had a few good years with Kurt Warner, and 2 good years with Carson Palmer. Now we're just going to show you some of his other quarterbacks. Yet he has all of these 1,000-yard seasons with ease and may go down as a top 5 wide receiver to ever live. You go, Fitzy, even if your team hasn't supplied you with most of the talent. Number 5, Tony Gonzalez, 1998 to 2004. Gonzalez owns virtually every meaningful tight end record. Quite impressive, considering the miserable Kansas City Chiefs team he was stuck on all those years. In his rookie season, Gonzalez helped KC win 13 games while capturing the AFC West Division. But after that, it was all downhill. The Chiefs kept using different quarterbacks, and the ever-inconsistent Trent Green was the best Gonzalez would work with. From 1998 to 2004, KC made the playoffs just once. They had 4 losing seasons, and those miserable Chiefs teams remain a huge reason why Gonzalez is one of the best players to never win a Super Bowl. Number 4, Steve Largent, 1976 to 1982. It's just amazing. Largent is one of the absolute greatest wide receivers to ever live. 819 catches for 13,089 yards and 100 touchdowns. And yet from 1976 to 1982, his Seattle Seahawks were awful. They racked up 5 losing seasons. The main reason was because Jim Zorn was not a very good quarterback. Seattle also didn't have any other stars to build around Largent. So this world-class wide receiver never got to truly experience winning. If only a time machine would let him play with the current Seattle Seahawks. Number 3, Walter Payton, 1975 to 1983. Widely regarded by most to be a top 5 all-time running back, Walter Payton really is an icon of the Chicago Bears franchise. The 9-time Pro Bowler hit 1,000 rushing yards all but 3 seasons in his 13-year career. Even though he was part of the legendary 85 Bears that won Super Bowl 20, Payton really didn't get all that much support for most of his career. In his first 9 seasons, Payton only saw 2 playoff games. Chicago posted 6 losing seasons. Part of that is because Chicago used 6 different quarterbacks from 75 to 83. Payton could have won so many more championships if he had the support early in his career, but who's counting? Number 2, Anthony Munoz, 1983 to 1987. NFL Network ranked him as the 12th greatest player of all time. We rank him at number 2 on our list. The Cincinnati Bengals icon solidified their offensive line for years, helping quarterbacks like Ken Anderson and Boomer Esiason turn into superstars. Unfortunately, a handful of Munoz's teams were quite awful. The Bengals wasted Munoz's and Anderson's talents. From 1983 to 87, they won 7, 8, 7, 10, and 4 games. Munoz is among the top players to never win a championship in his career. That probably has more to do with the players around Munoz rather than the tackle himself. And number 1, Dick Butkus. Notice how we didn't list years? That's sadly because Dick Butkus never got to play in a postseason game. The Chicago Bears legend is perhaps the greatest linebacker ever. Butkus was a 9-time Pro Bowler and 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Butkus racked up 22 interceptions as he revolutionized the linebacker position all on his own. Not only did Butkus fail to appear in a playoff game, but Chicago only had 2 winning seasons in the Butkus era. That's what happens when you have no supporting cast to help out a once-in-a-lifetime superstar. What other NFL players had horrible supporting casts? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps us out a ton and we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to Total Pro Sports though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.